Well, hello. Welcome back to another Kind of Funny Reacts. I'm Nick Scarpino. This is Mr. Tim Gettys. Tim, what are we reacting to today?
We are reacting to the Power Rangers D-Make movie trailer extravaganza short film thing that was made by Joseph Kahn.
This is not just a short film. This is like the mother of all short films.
I mean, this is
like
my dream, just in a visual format. Right, this is crazy.
Before we get to that, we're going to unpack that right now. But this video actually is sponsored. I want to take a second with you guys. It helps us out a little bit. Tell you about Harry's.com. Harry's.com, purveyors of fine shaving goods. If you go there, you can use this promo code you're seeing right now. You get $5 off an entry-level package. I hate shaving. You hate shaving. These guys make it a little easier for you. So check them out. You'll like them. Anyway,
you know, it's a good name, Harry's.
Harry's, fantastic.
Hair.
You know who's not Harry? James Van Der Beek.
James Van Der Beek is not Harry.
He's not Harry.
He is the one of the main actors in this. This is amazing. First off, before we even get
to Red Ranger,
before we get to that, well, here's the thing. He doesn't. He's not the Red Ranger.
He's a Red Ranger, I thought.
He was the second Red Ranger, but it was for a fairly limited time. He later becomes the Blue Ranger because Tommy takes over. It's this whole rigmarole.
Right.
It's this whole thing.
It's a rigmarole.
But that's what was so special. That was so special about this thing is they actually put a lot of thought into the canon and story of Power Rangers, the mythos, if you will.
Which you know, I'm mystified that there is that deep of a mythos.
I mean, it's pretty expansive. It's really expansive because it's not just Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. It's Power Rangers. There's been like 20-something seasons, and this kind of takes influences from a bunch of different ones. When I first heard this happen, I was getting a million tweets from all of you guys. Now, that's the other thing. We were reacting to this very late, and we understand that. I was gone the last couple of days.
Tim was in LA.
And it broke my heart that we couldn't do this right away.
Let's back up for a second. This has been a project that's been in your brain for a really long time. I'm sure you and every other Mighty Morphin Power Ranger fan on the planet.
Yeah.
And the reason behind that is, what would it be like? You know, back in the day when we were talking about April Fool's projects, you know, when we were doing the Orders and then we did iPlay, every year you would be like, I'm going to say it again. This is the only thing I bring to the table, a gritty reboot of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
That's it. Let's make a movie trailer and it's going to be awesome.
Right. And it sounded cool. We got well because it's difficult. I mean, I would love to interview Joseph Kahn and see how long this actually took to make.
Exactly. And what's crazy about this is, you know, we've seen a bunch of these fan films before for Power Rangers, and they're always fan films. They always feel very like, kids made these, like, or if we made it, like, we make some cool stuff.
Right.
But there's a limit to how cool the stuff we can make is, just based on budget and just resources and like actors and all this stuff. And when I first saw this, like when everyone was tweeting at me and I clicked on it, I saw it was 15 minutes and I was like, oh wow.
Yeah, it's gonna be that's my first impression too, is that I'm still shedding that idea of like, I need this to be a one. When we talked about it, I was like, this needs to be a 60-second trailer, like a 30-second teaser, right? And like our idea was like, you show just everything destroyed and the Green Ranger's all like messed up and bloody, and all you see is his helmet, and you see like someone tells me he's got to rebuild, and we got one money shot made.
Yeah,
it's gonna take us
Dragon Zord coming out of the water.
Dragon Zord coming out of the water, and that we're like, no, we can't do that because that's gonna take us like a month just to do. So I can't even imagine how long 15 minutes.
Well, so besides that, it starts off and I'm watching it and I'm instantly like, all right, it's a Power Ranger fan film, whatever. Right. Like, I don't like this.
But then the first couple shots actually got me.
And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute. Like, and when I say all of a sudden, I mean within the first 10 seconds.
Yeah, when they're running.
When you see the Black Ranger running with the machine gun, I was like, what? And then you see the Green Rangers like freaking gold shield and it's all digital and shit.
Yeah,
like,
and that's the thing I like about this, and I'm sure we'll get into the minutia a little bit more, but the little elements. And I liked tonally that it didn't take itself 100% seriously, but it pushed so far into the uber violent realm that it almost became something cool.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely a cool short. Cool. It's definitely a little tongue-in-cheek, a little.
It's Power Rangers.
Right. It basically goes from badass to, oh my god, what's going on? And it's so ultra violent that it just surpasses on a certain level.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's only one really tongue-in-cheek moment, and that's the Black Rangers fitness video.
That stuff was cool. You have the fight with the Black Ranger and the gangsters. Yeah. Right? And they've got that whole little thing where he like cuts his own guy's neck, and he's very nonchalant about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Those moments were cool, but they all sort of worked together. You know, to my original point, 15 minutes could seem like an eternity unless it's good. And we're all so used to things not grabbing us right off the bat and not being original that you look at that 15-minute bar and you're like, I don't know if I want to watch this whole thing. But this is a perfect example of how you make something good. It grabbed you right off the bat. What do I need to do? Let's put a machine gun in the Black Ranger's hand and have him just blast
show them all running, and then all of a sudden it's like so tense and stuff. Then you see the Megazords fighting. Within the first 15 seconds of this, you see Megazords. Holy shit! The money shot we wanted to be the end of our thing was just a throwaway at the beginning of this. Yeah. And that I was like, all right, I'm sold.
That was cool.
Then all of a sudden you get these two actual actors talking.
Yeah, I mean, we're actors. in the sense that we're idiots and we
True.
act stupid all the time. But James Van Der Beek, of course, you'll know him from Dawson's Creek and an assortment of other films. And Katie Sackhoff, most notably from Battlestar Galactica and Riddick, which if you haven't seen either of those series, pause this, go watch those, come back 6 months later, and continue watching this video.
Yes.
Both great actors, and both the correct level of camp for the casting, right? Because Battlestar Galactica had a very similar feel where it was serious, but there was like, it's kind of low budge, but it was also kind of a little campy at parts. And Katie's actually become quite a really good actress. She has a great look for the part too. So then we cut to that scene where James Van Der Beek's interrogating her, and you get the sense that these two are they're ex-Power Rangers, right?
Yes.
And he's a Red Ranger, but not the Red Ranger.
Yeah, so what's really interesting about the whole thing is like this whole short is essentially the Power Rangers being killed off one by one, and they're looking for Tommy, the Green Ranger.
Right, and Tommy's like nomadic, he's like a bum searching around.
Which honestly, it's crazy.
And it's in the midst of this sort of like machine war, right?
Yes, so this whole story, it's nuts because whenever people my age think about what they want from their ideal R-rated Power Ranger movie, it's that storyline. Like it's that idea of like the original Rangers are like dismantled, there's problems with them, and the Green Ranger needs to come and fix shit, right?
Right.
And so that alone was exciting, but the moment that she says Rocky and starts talking to him, I was like, damn, they really know what they're doing. Like that's really saying something. They're building characters into this. Like the machine.
Where was Rocky? Who was Rocky?
So Rocky's the second Red Ranger.
Okay.
So Jason was the first one, and Jason, you see him later. He gets killed. He gets shot when he's in the truck.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah.
So they got married.
Yeah.
The Pink Ranger and the original Ranger.
Yeah, which is
it's notable that she plays. Spoilers. She's supposed to play Kimberly.
Yeah, she's supposed to play Kimberly. There's a lot of really interesting things going on there, because Kimberly and Jason were never a thing.
Right.
But it's like, it was always implied, because it's like the Red Ranger and the Pink Ranger, so it's like you wanted them to be a thing.
They're the same spectrum of color.
Exactly. But then, obviously, Kimberly and Tommy do get together.
Yeah.
And then they even like
blew my perception of everything on that
where
one.
in this, like she's with Jason, and then she's very clearly with Tommy.
Right.
So it's like, that's cool. So they were playing a lot with like, kind of real life experience of Power Rangers and of the canon of Power Rangers.
Yeah.
So they're talking about this machine war that's going on, right? The Machine Empire and all that stuff. That's from Zeo, which is the second Power Ranger series.
Okay.
Season 4.
Of course it is.
And that's where Rocky becomes the Blue Ranger eventually, and there's this whole thing. And eventually, Rocky gives up his Blue Ranger power to this dumb little kid in Turbo, and he does that because he's in a karate like competition and he gets injured. He throws at his back, so it's not quite his leg, but you see in this he has like the robot leg.
Right.
So it's like there's these little nods that are like really subtle things where it's like, I mean, oh, I knew he was injured, so that's cool.
And that's the thing I like about this is it was created by a guy named Adi Shankar, right? And this guy's known, if you go, you can check out his YouTube page. He's known for making ultra-violent pieces of content, right?
Yeah.
Whether it be a movie where he executive produced Dread, or he did Lone Survivor. I think he also did The Grey with Liam Neeson. This is him executive producing Young Guy too, very impressive. But he also did a short that I saw a long time ago called Dirty Laundry with The Punisher, which is fantastic because it's Thomas Jane coming back as the Punisher. He was the Punisher. They decided not to go with him anymore. They did Ray Stevenson instead. So he did this short as kind of like this is what the Punisher movie should have been like. And he sort of said, what I like about this guy's work is that you can tell that he comes at it from a die-hard fan perspective.
Die-fucking-hard fan.
And you can tell that he goes, okay, this is everything that I feel from a passion and from a fan perspective needs to be in it, and then here's my little twist.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make it ultra-violent.
Yeah,
and when I say ultra-violent, I mean heads get canoed with bullets in this thing. And so, but I like that. I like that he has sort of the 80% of like, this is the story that I need to tell. That's sort of canon, and it's connected to the rest of the world, and it's gonna make guys like you go, you nailed it. And then here's my 20% art.
Yeah.
And it's riveting. It's one of the first times I've seen, and this guy's work always says that to me. Dirty Laundry is great too. It just vibes, man. It just makes sense.
And that's the thing, is it's like, even if you're not a Power Rangers fan, at least the story when watching this, it makes enough sense.
I am not a Power Rangers fan.
Yeah, exactly.
But see,
so when you watched it, you still understood what was going on to a point.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and it was crafted beautifully, and we should also note that it was directed by a guy named Joseph Kahn, who is a famous, well, not famous, but he's a fairly well-notable music video director.
Yeah, he made my favorite music video of all time, Knights of Sidonia by Muse. which is an incredible.
And he also, I believe, he also directed that last Taylor Swift video that came out.
Blank Space. He also directed "Stronger" by Britney Spears, and there's a reference to that video in this video with the chair.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that makes me pretty
these guys are incredibly talented, and I wish I had a little bit more time to kind of dig. I wish that it was on the IMDb. It's not, because I want to know who shot it. I want to know who did the post effects for it. All the stuff with the interview where it's like that Minority Report style, like throwing the Tony Stark style graphics. Spot on. It comes to a nice conclusion. It tells a sort of a nice ancillary story.
The end's my biggest problem with it. Like, for sure, because
they take a couple liberties with the end.
Yeah, like Rita never had those powers.
Right.
Like Rita comes in, that's great. I like that we saw her, but it's like Rita never had those powers, and there was a lot of like random like issues I had with the whole thing. Like going back to like the fun things you might have missed when you were watching this video. Like we got a lot of nice little throwbacks to stuff and just weird references to real life that make things kind of weird. For example, the Yellow Ranger died in real life in a car crash like 15 years ago. And all the Power Rangers went to her funeral in real life, like the actors.
Yeah.
And when you were introduced to the Yellow Ranger in this, they're at her funeral, and it's like it was definitely like a nod.
That's right.
To that. And then another thing, when we meet the Blue Ranger, who's kind of the scientist, smart guy of the group, Billy Cranston. He in this one he's a trillionaire and he's like selling the weapons and stuff. The weapons they're talking about, those are the weapons that they used in the show, like the blade technology or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's cool, and also you see all these like kind of like frames around his room, and one of them he's on the cover of Rolling Stone, another one he's on the cover of Coming Out magazine, and he in real life the actor
came out.
Yeah, David Yost. Okay. He came out as gay, and that's the reason he left Power Rangers is because the producers would bully him.
Really?
And so that's why he left the Power Rangers.
Yeah,
franchise.
I mean that's tough, man. You got a '90s show that has to be that sort of archetypal, casting. You you don't want to see that stuff happen. So, but that sucks.
That's just really interesting. That like I love that like that's how much of a fan he is that he's referencing these like real life things too.
He's basically you if you were an executive producer in Hollywood
and had a lot of money to make cool things happen. But
and wore cool face paint.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's other things in it that I'm forgetting to call out. But like I mean there was the hip hop Keto, which is the Black Rangers like kind of hip hop style of fighting. I love that they got that in there. I love when he finally like kills the general and like he's like bleeding out and you just hear the badass the Power Rangers thing, the Go-Go Power Rangers thing going, like that's fucking awesome.
Little touches like that normally wouldn't work, but because the style was so over the top and the style was so like, you just accept it. You're like, that was fun. That was a cool little nod. Instead of it took me out of it. You're like, that put me right into it. What I also thought was cool was you mentioned that there was a R-rated cut of this, right? Like X-rated, or where there's actually nudity.
Well,
and there's all sorts of crazy
I'm
stuff.
pretty sure that even the YouTube version is R-rated. Like it's pretty.
That's definitely R-rated, but I guess there's another
an unrated cut where there's you see boobs and there's more gore. And a fun shout out about the boobs that you wouldn't know just watching this, but there's two girls that Zach is kind of like with in bed when you first see him, the Black Ranger. And if you look in the credits, I always love looking in credits for movies because it kind of gives away some secrets that you might not have caught. And they credit Divatox and Scarpino, who are the bad guys from Zeo and Turbo.
And those are the two girls.
Those are the two girls.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's just cool, fun little stuff. And another thing I got from the credits was that the Asian general guy is supposed to be the Prince general from the Zeo show. So that's cool. A couple things that like just felt wrong to me though were just Rita, because that didn't make any sense.
Right. Well, see, that's the thing to me, is that's where I've only seen maybe a handful of episodes of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and I am not a diehard fan. But to me, when that happened, I was like, you saw it coming, Because she starts getting all freaky, and you're like, all right. And then they have this great shot where you're like, he's like, you're not Kimberly. I saw her die. And you're like, oh, okay, Sackhoff can't die because she's so hot. But when it started to break apart, she was enough of a likeness to me that I was like, I buy this. Plus, they took enough liberties that I'm like, they're telling a different story. They're telling a standalone tale.
Yeah.
It would be different if it was an official canon movie.
Well, yeah, canonically it makes no sense.
It makes no
because
sense.
By the time the Machine Empire was around, Rita was like long gone.
But I also love, it was beautifully shot. The camera work was great. And, again, let's go back to the acting, right? Like, this is what happens when you cast people who actually are actors. And we see this a lot. We see people that go and they make these awesome fan films, but the acting's not necessarily there. And I'm not saying that, don't bash me in the comments. I'm not saying that Katie Sackhoff and James Vanderbeek are, the world's the best actors on the planet. Because certainly, in this, I don't know how long they rehearsed for, but they had a nice chemistry back and forth, and they did have that sort of familiarity that you need.
Yeah, and they made like cringeworthy lines fun. Like the whole
Well, Katie Sackhoff
like,
has
whatever, that's not a good color on you. And she's like, I prefer pink. And I was like, yeah, get it, girl.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Katie Sackhoff has a very strong lineage of making those lines kind of sell. With Battlestar. If you go back and watch the first season of Battlestar Galactica, you're like, whoa, some of this stuff is fresh out of the Do Not Write book. But yeah, other than that, Tim, I mean, you mentioned a couple things where, what else was wrong with it? What do you think?
Well, something that's not wrong with it, but I love the use of the subtitles. I thought that was really cool.
That's cool. Yeah, that builds into the graphical style of the whole thing, which is very, very well
But
put together.
To me, that leads into something that was wrong with it, which is the audio mixing was a little bit off. So it was really hard to hear some of the things. So like when I watched it with a couple of my friends, they straight up didn't know who she was talking to. Like they assumed that was Jason, the Red Ranger.
Interesting.
And then later when they met the other Jason, they're like, wait, what? Hold on, what is going on?
See,
because she only says Rocky once.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you don't know who Rocky is, which most people don't know who Rocky is.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't necessarily need to know who Rocky is. Like, I didn't know who Rocky is either, but I got that he wasn't the original Red Ranger.
Yeah. Oh, also, one little thing that I loved was she was just like, you were never one of us. You were never really one of us. And he was just like, oh, that's good or whatever. Yeah. But I love that because that's such a thing. That's like a shout out to the fans.
Yeah, the original.
Like, nobody fucking cares about Rocky.
Hey, I care about Rocky. Rocky with your badass
about
leg.
Rocky.
I love James
No one
Vanderbeek.
cares about Rocky. Like, oh, Rocky, man, come on. Let me just, real quick, let me put this out there.
Yeah.
No one cares about Rocky. We went from Jason being the Red Ranger, and everyone loves Jason. You're like, oh, you're the coolest ever. And then all of a sudden, Tommy comes, and he's the Green Ranger. And you're like, oh, wait, that's way cooler than the Red. Right. He has this gold thing. Oh, now he's the White Ranger. Now he's the real leader. The Red Ranger became just like this fucking side bitch at best. Yeah. It's just like, what is this? Then Zeo comes along, and Tommy becomes the Red Ranger. He's like, yeah, now I'm the leader, so deal with this. And then Rocky becomes the Blue Ranger.
Yeah. Well, there you have it, folks.
No one cares about Rocky.
Thanks so much for watching this react. Tim, thank you so much for your opinion.
Yes.
You can't see this anymore because it just got pulled down, but I'm sure there's
we can
probably
talk about this thing for days.
Multiple
That's the thing,
uploads
man.
about it. Yeah, I mean, it's so well done, and I can't wait to see what this guy does next. Again, you know, he did Dredd, for Christ's sake. He's the executive producer on that Dredd remake that didn't do well in theaters. But man, I love that movie. It's on Netflix. If you want to see more of this style, go watch that. If you want to see more of Tim and me, stay right here. Subscribe to youtube.com/kindafunny, and we will be here every day with you, like we are in a prison of avocado-colored walls.
My God.
My God. Thanks for joining us, guys.